all the attention heading into this weekend's Singapore Grand Prix centered around Ford once again. Last week we found out that the Ford factory had been broken into, with many doors and secret files being left open, with lots of other important information and files and pieces of paper being thrown all across the floor. Now, investigations are continuing at Ford's factory as evidence is collected, and Ford are currently underway as gathering all the CCTV footage and have already begun questioning all of the staff members that were working during this time period. Ewan Wright, Ford team principal, confirms that both drivers will be questioned after this race. There was a bit of concern whether Gasly and Noah James were actually going to be questioned on this matter, and Ewan Wright has confirmed that both will be questioned as both Ford drivers were at the site before the break-in happened. And Ford have confirmed that no information is going to be shared whatsoever until all the evidence has been collected. Of course, last time Ford were involved in an incident, which was last year at Ford's annual team party, there had been lots of evidence that was being thrown around which ended up being false information. This time around, Ford are making sure that nothing is said to the public until the evidence is 100% accurate. Taking a look at the race news then for the Singapore Grand Prix, it was Tom that set the pace in practice in FP1, FP2 and in FP3. So it looks to be that this could be a weekend when Tom can get redemption. Of course, Tom crashed out of the last time the Singapore Grand Prix when driving for Jaguar, and he'll be looking to make amends here this time around. Mercedes are also looking very strong this weekend as they look to try and put a threat towards Audi, McLaren and Jaguar, who are the top three teams in this current season of Formula 1. Lewis Hamilton has been very close to Tom so far in practice, and it could be a straight fight between the pair of them. Now, strategy is set to be key as in terms of the race outcome for the Singapore Grand Prix, with the top 10 most likely having to start the race on the soft compound tyres, forcing them into a potential two-stop strategy, whereas the people outside of the top 10 won't have to do that unless they really want to, and it could allow them to gain an upper hand. Red Bull are happy with their car heading into this weekend. Singapore is a very difficult circuit, especially with some of the bumps around the circuit, and Red Bull seem to be happy with the way that the car is riding, and one man that surprisingly was actually complimentary of Red Bull for a change was Max Verstappen. He also said that the Red Bull was handling very nicely. Jaguar are fearing for their tyre wear. Again, tyre wear is something that's going to be quite key for this race, and it seems like Jaguar are unhappy with the way that their tyres were performing throughout practice. So can they get it right for qualifying and for the race? Let's find out. Hey, what's going on, guys? It is FoxStudio98 here. Welcome back to a brand new episode of the F1 Journey for you guys today here on the channel. We are here for round number 8, which is the Singapore Grand Prix. If you end up enjoying today's video, feel free to drop it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here as well to really help me out and really support the channel. That'd be absolutely amazing. And also for today's episode, we are looking to try and get redemption from last season. If you didn't watch any of last season, I was driving for Jaguar back then, and I was dominating the Singapore Grand Prix, and we ended up crashing out. But as you can see on the left-hand side of your screen, there we've got the Drivers' Championship so far. So at the moment, as things stand, Daniel Ricciardo has got a 10-point lead over us in the championship, with Sam in third ahead of Charles Leclerc in fourth, and then Reese in fifth on 86 points. The top 5 pretty close, and then it starts to spread out a little bit more there. So a lot to play for in this Grand Prix, and as you can see then, let's go on for our ride on board with my final and best lap here at the Singapore Street Circuit in towards turn 1, a little bit early actually on turn-in, so I had to back out of the turn-in and then get back onto it again. On exit of turn 3 though, we get a nice run through here. Now in towards turn 4, we actually went in a little bit too close to the curb there, and so far it's not been a brilliant first sector, quite scruffy actually, as we're now around about half a tenth slower than our previous best lap. But as we break in towards Raffles Boulevard, taking a lot of curb on the inside, but just enough then as we now go through in towards this tricky middle sector here. You can see we're about 2 tenths up, and we're going to nail this left-hander, and that's going to bring us up to about half a second now, faster than our previous best lap. Here's the Singapore Sling. That's the wall there where we crashed last season whilst we were in our final stint after just coming out of the pits, which was crucial. Now going through the Anderson Bridge here, down in towards the hairpin, lovely braking point through that, and then just getting onto the power straight away. You can see that we're already a second faster than our previous best lap. Absolutely flying as we set the fastest middle sector so far. Actually missed my apex there and had to run a little bit wide, but we're all right on exit now as we go through in towards this final sector here now. Little bit wayward again on the first part of the corner, but it's absolutely fine here. Now through under the tunnel here, or under the grandstand should I say, we're absolutely fine. And the final 2 corners now coming up, nailing the apexes on both of them. Exit is absolutely perfect. Now towards the last corner, hit that side of the curb and across the line for pole position. The sun is down, the lights are switched on, which means it's one thing when it comes to Singapore, and that is race time. It is round number 8 of the Formula 1 season here on season number 7, and it is the 98th F1 Journey Grand Prix. Just 2 more races to go before we reach F1 Journey 100. The skies are clear, which is absolutely beautiful for us, and we have got the most challenging circuit on the Formula 1 calendar. The 3.146 mile circuit contains 23 corners and just pure living hell, with the humidity amidst with the very long lap really causing problems for the drivers. We've got the soft, the medium and the hard compound tyres on one of the tracks in which by these tyre compounds are going to be critical. Those starting on the softs will have to do a 2-stop, whereas those on the mediums can do a 1-stopper and get in the way of the front runners, which could be quite problematic. There's Sam in his Jaguar getting ready to go. Looking at the starting grid though for the Singapore Grand Prix, it is pole position for us under the lights with Lewis Hamilton in the Mercedes AMG Vestas alongside us on the front row of the grid. Ricciardo qualifies in P3 for McLaren with Charles Leclerc in P4 behind for Audi. Good qualifying for him. Sam starts the race from 5th on the grid with George Russell behind him in 6th. Daniel Ricciardo, the championship leader, down in P7. Not a great qualifying session for him with my teammate Sainz in 8th place. Valtteri Bottas, great qualifying from him in P9 ahead of Lando Norris in P10. Sebastian Vettel has got basically strategic pole position with P11, starting whatever tyre compound he wants. He's in front of Max Verstappen with Nick de Vries and Mason Wood 13th and 14th. Pierre Gasly starts the race from 15th place ahead of Nico Hülkenberg's Porsche in 16th. 17th is Esteban Ocon ahead of then Sergio Perez in the 2nd Aston Martin, and on the back row of the grid it is Noah James and Pascal Wehrlein rounding off your grid for the Singapore Grand Prix. Alright then, it is race time here for the Singapore Grand Prix, and as you can see, it's going to be a 2-stop strategy for us, and crucially, there's a little bit of rain that's going to come later on in the Grand Prix, so hopefully that doesn't affect things, but we've got 5 red lights starting from pole, and it's lights out, and away we go then for the start of the Singapore Grand Prix. A lovely start from us initially. Hamilton does get a good start as well. Have to give him some room on the inside there, but the outside line is able to just allow us to just swoop through the first corner and then take turn 2 on the inside line there, and we are ahead of Lewis Hamilton, leading the Singapore Grand Prix for the first time in this race. And now it's all about settling down and starting to manage this Grand Prix here. But as we now head down towards Raffles Boulevard, Hamilton gaining in a little bit. So on this is obviously the AIs do run at full power for the first 2 laps or so, just until DRS is enabled, and that's when they have to start saving their energy. So at this stage of the Grand Prix, we've just got to make sure that we don't make any silly mistakes, because those AIs will absolutely annihilate us, and it will become a little bit of a concern later on in the Grand Prix when trying to pass them. Now, as you can see here, going through the Singapore Sling again, going to be a little bit worried about that one throughout the entirety of the Grand Prix. Of course, like I said many times before, that is where I crashed, and I don't want to do that again, because I want to win here in Singapore. Going through the hairpin now though, lovely exit, and as you can see, already starting to build ourselves a little bit of a gap now over Lewis Hamilton. And this final sector here is where you can really gain time on the AIs, not even discounting the mods that I use and that I've made for this series. Just in general, you can just gain so much time here, and the AIs just don't really seem to be able to match your performance through this specific section, which is absolutely fine, because it just means I have more success and more fun on this circuit. As you can see now, round the final chicane here, onto the exit now, and through the last corner here, and flying it through, across the line, and you can see that we are ahead at this stage of the Grand Prix. Let's go and have a look at the race start though, see what happened further back, because nothing really happened on my end of things. So as the lights went out, like I said, Lewis Hamilton actually got a better start than I did, in fairness to him. You can see that he's still alongside, and I had to give him the room into turn 1, but he does back out of it in the end there. So definitely a little bit of cause for concern that Lewis Hamilton was definitely alongside me. It's quite a weird one. Whenever I start from pole, I always seem to struggle off the line, but when I'm not on pole, I can get flying starts. And here's on board with Charles Leclerc now. He was actually started from P4 here. He's challenging Ricciardo now in towards the first few corners here. He'll have the inside line for this corner, but Ricciardo will eventually should be able to hold it, should I say, around the outside. But Leclerc has got great traction actually out of here. Ricciardo is slowly getting away, but now on the exit of turn 4 here, making the charge down towards Raffles Boulevard, Leclerc is going to get in front, and he makes up a position straight away. And this is his teammate George Russell now. So Russell directly behind Leclerc, who started in 6th place now. He's got Sam in front of him here as he goes in towards the first corner now. And this is pretty much going to be a carbon copy, I think, of these two having a little bit of a scrap here. You can see now as Russell doesn't quite have the outside line, which, like I said, is favourable to many. Sam, this time, though, compared to Reese, is a lot further ahead heading into the corner. And now, as you can see, onto the straight, it's going to be a drag race here. And it looks like George Russell has just got a little bit more than Sam. They're going side by side now, down towards Raffles Boulevard here. George Russell on the inside, Sam on the outside. This should really be Sam's position, but it's not quite. I always expect the outside line to benefit you, and it does on that occasion because Russell goes through. So both of the Audis making up places now as we go on to lap 3 of the Grand Prix here. This is the battle for second place now between Hamilton and Leclerc. Hamilton locks up into Raffles Boulevard and gives Leclerc a little opportunity there. Also to Reese as well, just to say that you are ready to pounce. Lap 5 of the Grand Prix. You can see that as the first 5 laps went on, we've really been building ourselves up a lovely, comfortable gap now compared to the front runners. There is Lewis Hamilton and there is Leclerc. So we might get helped by Leclerc in the pit stops here, which would be a bit of an annoyance for us. But it's all right. Yeah, we kind of got held just a little bit there. Not too badly, actually. It could have definitely been a hell of a lot worse. Leclerc, though, is going to get held up by Hamilton and also Sam. So there's a little bit of karma back that Leclerc has lost a lot of time in his pit stop now as we're coming out of the pits here. And we're going to rejoin in what looks like some clean air, which is lovely for us. However, it does mean that we are going to be quite far down the order because, of course, we've only had 5 laps on our soft compound tyres, getting close to the wall there. But you can clearly see out front the amount of cars. Now, a lot of these cars will be stopping at the end of this next lap now, lap 6. But a lot of these cars are going to be on those medium compound tyres. On board here now with George Russell, who's attacking Valtteri Bottas on the medium compound tyres. It's George Russell. Same too with Valtteri Bottas as Russell now goes around the outside of Bottas. Bottas locks up into Raffles, but unfortunately for Russell, it's not going to be the greatest time trying to pass Bottas because he defends the position quite nicely. Lap 8 of this Grand Prix now, and we actually cut the inside of the first part of the chicane there, but we got karma back by losing the rear end of doing so. So it means that we don't actually gain anything, but now we've got a lot of cars here that we need to pass. We've got a gap between myself and Lewis Hamilton. That's going to cut down now as we're stuck in this traffic, but it's about how quickly we can dispatch of these cars now. And we need to dispatch of them very, very quickly and make sure that we can take command in the Singapore Grand Prix as we open up the DRC. It's a lovely exit versus Pascal Wehrlein, I believe this is. No, it's not. It's, yeah, it is Wehrlein in the Porsche car. And we're going to go down the insides into Raffles here. Wehrlein actually double locks up there. So that's not good for his tyres. And he'll definitely be feeling the vibrations on those ones as we're now going to catch up to Noah in the Ford. Now going through in towards what is going to be the Singapore Sling and the Padang Grandstand on the left-hand side. How would I know that? Not a clue. As you can see now, we're going through in towards now the end of the Singapore Sling here, now coming towards the Anderson Bridge. This is a place where you can get loads of overtaking done. So we're going to go right round the outside here, and then we're just going to swoop on through. It's such a simple overtake. I'm pretty sure I'll make another overtake later on where I can show that in full. Now we're going to go and attack Hulkenberg here, and we are absolutely steamrolling through these traffic, through the traffic, should we say, taking no quarters here right now, dodging and weaving our way through absolutely everything now as we're catching up to Pierre Gasly. Hamilton is, I think, just about on the back of Pascal Wehrlein. No, not quite. He'll be on him by the pit straight though, so it's going to be quite close. But at the moment, we've already passed 3 cars, and for the AIs to pass 3 cars around Singapore, that ain't going to be easy at all as we now go through the last corner here, attacking Gasly in the Ford. You can see now both of us have got DRS, but we are going to make a move down the inside into turn 1, and it's a lovely late braking move then on Pierre Gasly. Esteban Ocon is next up on our hit list. There is Ocon, in fact, in front of us. Hamilton now and also Charles Leclerc have caught up to the traffic, so that's going to be costly for them. Reese has actually dropped back quite a lot. He's actually dropped behind the Jaguar of Sam and all of that, so he's a long way back, but crucially he'll be able to gain some time too as we get past Ocon, who actually went a little bit defensive into Raffles Boulevard. I thought he'd, you know, warrant a bit of the space and just accept the overtake was done, but he came to the middle of the circuit and tried to make it difficult for us as we're now following onto the back of one of the Red Bulls here. I think this is Mason Wood because Verstappen is the Red Bull that is absolutely miles clear. He's just gone through the hairpin now, so he's really far ahead in this Grand Prix. This is what I'm talking about how you can make a move here. Just go around the outside. It's so simple to take that move, and then you've got a better exit, and through you go. And you can do that even without the mods that I've made when you've just got normal performance Formula 1 cars. So I definitely recommend trying it, because a lot of people around Singapore, they'll just cover the inside line into that hairpin, whereas you can just brake super late and get around the outside as long as you've got the traction to do so. Now we're on the back of Nick De Vries here though, and unfortunately for me, De Vries is now holding me up in this last sector. We're trying to find a way through, but obviously around here in Singapore, you just got to be a bit patient and wait for that opportunity to arise. And there goes De Vries into the pits. We'll get some DRS, and now we've got to try and think about cutting that gap to myself and Verstappen. It's probably about 8 seconds so far, so we've got to close that gap down. Meanwhile, further back, this is Lewis Hamilton trying to find a way through past Pascal Wehrlein. Not going to find it into turns 1 or 2. Now onto the back straight though, in towards Raffles Boulevard. Hamilton is going to get the inside line versus Pascal Wehrlein, and he should get through quite comfortably here on the Porsche driver. And it's going to be a little bit of a scrap though, actually. Wehrlein holding on in there as much as he can, but Hamilton's going to have the outside line, and he can swoop on through. Charles Leclerc is going to have to get past him next, but for Leclerc, this should be an easy move. Oh, it's not actually going to be an easy move because he's just dived into the pits now. But for Ricciardo, though, who is in the McLaren, is now going to go down the inside here of Leclerc into turn 1. This will be a crucial move here. Ricciardo catching up to the back of the traffic that he initially dropped away from in this race. Now all of a sudden Leclerc finds himself in a spot to bother here as they go now round turn 4. Now onto the back straight, you see Hamilton pulling away out front. Bottas now fancies a run on Leclerc. Ricciardo doesn't have DRS here. Leclerc does, and Ricciardo is going to get in front though of Charles Leclerc, and George Russell tries again to get past Valtteri Bottas. So Russell still hasn't got past Bottas, and still won't pass Bottas because he's not giving him any inches of room to try and overtake here. Now again, let's see if George Russell can do it for about the 20th time in this Grand Prix. Around the outside in towards Raffles. Let's see what he can do, but again, Bottas has the outside line into this hairpin, and it's crucial for exit speed, and there you go, Bottas is still ahead. So yeah, George Russell will have to deal with another lap of pure frustration. For me though, I don't have to deal with anything. I'm having a beautiful race right now, and I'm really enjoying myself, which is brilliant for us. And this is crucial so far because as things stand, we are yet to win in our Ferrari this season. 8 races in, and we have still not won a Grand Prix yet. So it's definitely been a tough season for us, but it's one that I'm thoroughly enjoying. But at the moment, what I am thoroughly enjoying is a race which is going to plan. And as you can see now, we're on to another set of the medium compound tyres here, and we're going to exit the pits. Of course, our race is with Max Verstappen. Of course, he was miles ahead as we see Vettel getting through us now. But as we go on to the exit of the pit lane, speaking of Verstappen, there is Max Verstappen. So the overcut then. Verstappen pitted for hard compound tyres, of course. And for us, I thought we had to go and chase and pass Verstappen, but the pace was so good in clean air that we're through and we don't have to pass Verstappen. So crucially, our main rival in this Grand Prix, we've now overcut him. He's on the hard compound tyres, we're on the medium compound tyres, and that's it, job done. That's game over now, unfortunately, for Verstappen. There is no chance he'll catch up. And now what we're going to do is go for a fastest lap point. I think we've already got it, but I want to confirm it, pretty much. Obviously, the rest of the cars as well are stopping for another set of tyres, so I want to make sure that I get fastest lap. And we're going to ride on board for my lap here, for fastest lap, of course. We've obviously ridden on board for my pole position lap. This is what it's like to try and set a fastest lap in the race itself now. So we're going towards the first sector here. We're going to be around about 2/10 up in the first sector now through Raffles Boulevard. Very nice on braking and very nice on exit as well as we now go through in towards the hairpin here. This time taking a little bit more curve compared to our qualifying lap, and you can just see how overall the differences between qualifying and then obviously in the race itself as we go through in towards the Singapore sling here. Nice and clean overall. Everything about this lap is just so clean and tidy at the moment. Let's see how we get from through the Anderson Bridge. Probably broke a little bit too early. Probably could have afforded to break a little bit later. However, of course, we are on fresh tyres, so obviously I was still used to the tyres when they were warm, but 1.2 seconds up at this rate. But compared to qualifying, that corner we got absolutely spot on. Now, this next chicane, let's see if we can try and get the braking points and the apexes right this time. Absolutely spot on through there, as we're now going to go underneath the grandstands any moment now. And yeah, again, just super clean and tidy. This lap was actually one of the cleanest laps I think I've ever had around Singapore, really. That final chicane was probably a little bit too much on there. But as we go round through the last corner, lifting off ever so slightly, and it's across the line for a 1:26.93, nearly 2 seconds faster than my previous best lap here, which is absolutely incredible. Lap 23 of the Grand Prix now. We've got our first yellow flag of the Grand Prix, and it looks like one of the Aston Martin drivers has retired from this Grand Prix, so I wonder who that is. Then we've got one of the Jaguars actually that's just overtaken them, so one of the Jaguars has had a shocker of a Grand Prix, and they're really far down the order, which is crucial. If it's Sam, that's massive for the championship, but it is Nick de Vries that is pulling over to the... No, it's not. It's Sergio Perez, I think, actually. I don't know which one it is. I can't see the T-cam properly. I think it's Nick de Vries that's pulled over to the side, which is an absolute shame for him. As we're on board now with Charles Leclerc here, who is trying to pass Nico Hülkenberg in the Porsche, but it's not going to work for him as we now go a three-wide moment. It's towards turn one. Ricciardo gets a double overtake done there on Noah James and Valtteri Bottas, as Lando Norris then is trying to wait for an overtaking spot himself here. So it looks like the Jaguar that's all the way at last place at the moment is Sam then. So Sam's had a big problem in this Grand Prix as we're watching now Bottas and James trying to go for it now in towards into Raffles Boulevard. It's going to be side by side, but Bottas, we know, is a feisty old man when it comes to just fending off anyone really, and he's going to get that outside line and he's going to get through and ahead. Now as we're watching Gasly here attacking Hamilton now, this is a big one here actually. Gasly on the hard compound tyres, Hamilton as well pitted for the hard compound tyres, so that's actually kind of crucial because he's on a two-stop race just like myself and pretty much everybody else that was in that top 10, and for him to have to go onto the hard compound tyres is quite a strange one here as we see Esteban Ocon now under pressure from Charles Leclerc down towards Raffles, the easiest place to get your overtaking done. Leclerc on the outside, Ocon on the inside, Ocon on the hard compound tyres, but Leclerc can get the move done there with those medium compound tyres. It's much easier for him to get the traction on exit as we now ride on board here with Daniel Ricciardo, the championship leader, trying to recover some places. It's not been a brilliant race actually for Ricciardo as he now goes towards the outside line of turn one here versus Nico Hülkenberg, and around the outside goes Daniel Ricciardo, and the move is done for the Aussie man as he tries to move up in the order. Of course, with me out front and setting the fastest lap, this is going to be crucial for the Formula 1 World Championship. At the moment, I think we'll actually jump into the lead of the championship as we see Lewis Hamilton there overtaking Mason Wood. But crucially, as he is doing so, the rain is starting to fall now here in Singapore in these latter stages, and now we're on board here with Ricciardo and Verstappen. This is a battle that's really close then. This is a battle for second place, of course. Verstappen running in second, Ricciardo in third. Ricciardo's had a brilliant recovery drive actually, but on that occasion, he didn't get the overtake done. Back on board with Hamilton now, who's trying to overtake Mason Wood. This is for fourth place in the Grand Prix as far as I'm aware. You can see the rain is falling now quite heavily in this stage of the Grand Prix, so it's going to get slippery out there, especially for the guys on the worn hard compound tyres. It's not going to be fun. Hamilton though gets the overtake done. He's up into fourth. Meanwhile, back into the fight for second place. Verstappen versus Ricciardo now as they go down towards Raffles. This time Ricciardo will have that inside line. He didn't get it last time. Verstappen though tries to cover him off here, but Ricciardo unfortunately it's just going to be a little bit too fast, so he'll try and cover that inside line. Ricciardo will go around the outside though. He'll get the better exit though versus Verstappen. Ricciardo into second place. Verstappen drops into third in the Red Bull. But crucially, Red Bull on course for their first podium of the season as we see Gasly now trying to overtake Mason Wood. So crucially, one of the Red Bulls, or both Red Bulls actually in theory, shouldn't really be in the position that he is in this high up the order. Obviously Verstappen running in P3 is even more of a surprise, but it was quite clear that Verstappen had a lot more pace in the opening stints. You saw Mason Wood having to scrap a little bit as well, which probably hasn't helped him out, and this has pretty much been the reason I think now why Mason Woods is falling so far down the order as Ricciardo now is making up some moves as he goes down the inside here. I think DRS might have actually been disabled now at this point because Mason Wood didn't get DRS on Gasly ahead. Neither did Ricciardo, and Ricciardo was right behind Mason, but he does get the overtake done nonetheless. Ricciardo moves up another place now. Onto the final lap of the Grand Prix here, and this was quite scary actually. The rain was really falling now at this stage, and I was literally being so ginger trying to get this car home. At the moment, it is now just straight intermediate tyres. And as you can see though, we are going to round the final corner, and we are going to just about run a little bit wide, but crucially take our first win for Ferrari, and our first, well, not our first win for Ferrari, but our first win in season number 7. And as you can see, we are on the top step of the podium, and that is a great feeling. We absolutely dominated the Singapore Grand Prix, and as you can see, the race results clearly identify and prove that. As you can see, we have won the Singapore Grand Prix, and we were 17.6 seconds clear of Ricciardo at the end. We actually got a 3-second time penalty for track limit warnings. Most of those I took during the wet weather period. In fact, all of them I think I took during the wet weather period. But we are 17 seconds clear. Verstappen finishes in 3rd place, 24 seconds behind. Lewis Hamilton finished in 4th. He was 48 seconds behind at the flag. Charles Leclerc, P5 for Audi, 50 seconds behind at the end of the race. Pierre Gasly, a fantastic 6th place for Ford, getting himself a massive amount of points, which is crucial for the team. Daniel Ricciardo, 7th for McLaren. He couldn't get close enough to Pierre Gasly in the end. Mason Wood finishes in P8. I think that might be the first, or maybe the first time this season that Red Bull have had 2 cars in the podium position. In the points this season. Esteban Ocon gets P9 for Renault, 2 points, which is crucial for them. And also Nico Hülkenberg grabbing some points as well for Porsche, which is absolutely key. The fast lap of the race was set by myself with a 1:26.938. Hopefully as well you like the new race results graphics, because as you can clearly see, they have been altered and changed and updated. So hopefully you like them. Moving on to the second half of the table, my teammate Carlos Sainz finishes in P11. It wasn't a good race for Sainz, unfortunately, here today. Got caught up in all the traffic. Valtteri Bottas, P12 for Renault, with Lando Norris 13th for Jaguar. Sebastian Vettel, P14 for Mercedes. Noah James finishes in 15th place for Ford, ahead of George Russell in P16. Sam finishes in P17. I actually went back in the race results to go and find out why Sam finished in 17th place. I found out it's because he did a 3-stop race. He did soft, medium, I think it was. It was a weird ride. I don't know what Jaguar were doing with his strategy, but screwed him over though. Sergio Perez finishes in 18th place, ahead of Pascal Wehrlein in P19, and then Nick de Vries was the Aston Martin that DNF'd in the end, causing no safety car actually, but causing the only retirement of the race itself. Looking then at the Drivers' Championship after this race, you can see that we are now championship leaders. We have gone ahead and taken the Drivers' Championship lead. The gap was 10 points between myself and Daniel Ricciardo. It's now 10 points, but in my favour this time around. We're on 124 points as Daniel Ricciardo is on 114 points. The gap then is 20 points between myself and Reese. He is on 104 points. Charles Leclerc in the Audi is on 101 points, 23 points behind me in the championship. Sam remains on 95 points and has fallen back now down to 5th in the championship. Lando Norris 6th in the championship on 61 points. Lando Norris doesn't move. Both Jaguars did not score points today, which is crucial. George Russell in the Audi is 7th on 52 points, ahead of Lewis Hamilton, who is in P8 with 44 points. Max Verstappen moves back into the top 10 of the championship thanks to his podium today. He's on 29 points, and then Sebastian Vettel is in P10 for the second Mercedes. The next event is the Hungarian Grand Prix, which is another track where traffic could really cost a lot of drivers. Looking then at the Constructors' Championship now, you can see that McLaren still lead the Constructors' Championship, crucially, thanks to both McLaren drivers scoring points today and Jaguar not scoring. McLaren increase their championship lead. They're on 218 points. They've now got a comfortable gap between Jaguar, who are on 156 points after failing to score. Audi are on 153 points, just 3 points back now. And crucially for us in Ferrari, we may be 4th in the championship, but we are now on 137 points and less than 20 points back now, 19 points back from Jaguar. So we've really pretty much got ourselves into the mix now with the top 3 teams. Mercedes-Benz are 5th with 72 points and are asserting themselves as the 5th best team on the grid. Red Bull are back up to 6th in the championship, ahead of Renault, who are on 19 points. Ford are at 18 points. Crucially, Ocon's points today made sure that Renault stayed in front of Ford. That's a good scrap that's going on there. Porsche get another point on the board, so they're up to 7 points now, and then Aston Martin remain on the 2 points. But that is going to be it for this Singapore Grand Prix. But let's go and have a look at the post-race notebook and see what the teams and drivers had to say after the Singapore Grand Prix. Taking a look at the post-race notebook then after today's Singapore Grand Prix, and Tom took his first win of the season for Ferrari. It took a long time until that victory came around. Took 8 races, but he is a winner once again with Ferrari, and they are back on top with Prix. An excellent second place for McLaren, and Max Verstappen, of course, with a brilliant 3rd place for Red Bull. Speaking of Max Verstappen and that 3rd place, Max Verstappen was asked in the post-race conference whether Red Bull were finally taking an uptune in fortune. whereas Verstappen decided not to really say anything on the matter. He didn't believe that there is massive amounts of progress to be made and really just didn't really want to answer that question. Of course, Red Bull this season have been slightly behind in terms of aero and chassis departments, but their big downfall is the BMW power unit, which is just not good enough, and Verstappen refused to comment on if there was going to be any progress. Nico Hülkenberg hopes that the point that he managed to claim here in Singapore is going to allow the Porsche team to gain some momentum as they look to try and fight further up the order. Of course, Porsche are very much lower end midfield to back market team with Aston Martin and Ford, but they think that they can do enough to try and worry the likes of Ford and Renault. And Sam was absolutely outraged with Jaguar over his poor strategy at the Singapore Grand Prix. During the race, Sam was the only driver in the field to do a 3-stop strategy, and there doesn't seem to be any damages that meant that Sam had to make an extra pit stop. Jaguar literally just did that. Of course, tensions have started to bubble a little bit with Sam and Jaguar, especially with their main brand Monster Energy, and it seems to be bubbling a bit more now that Sam has this poor strategy. But can Sam bounce back in the next race at the Hungarian Grand Prix, or is it going to lead to more strategical frustration? We'll find out then. Take care all.